Imagine your parents naming you He Who Comes in Peace, and through a series of events in your life, you actually become a god. I'm serious. I know this might sound a little blasphemous, but hear the story out and see for yourself. And the crazy thing is, I had barely heard of this legend before I started the research. I had heard of their name in passing, I think from a movie I watched, hint hint, but I didn't know what he had done or any details. So, if you're like me and you love hearing something new and saying, "Really? I didn't know that. That's pretty cool," then keep watching. You're never gonna believe how this guy pulled off a shot at divinity. Welcome to Legend Origins, everyone. In this episode, historian, that's Historain, and myself will delve deep into story form, into the life of this incredibly impactful historical legend. Many of the legends we talk about on this channel, you'll never have heard of before. I know I had only vaguely heard of this guy in today's video, but wow. Comment below after watching if you knew what this legend did. I'd love to hear from you. Either way, if you did or didn't know, you'll definitely learn a few cool fun facts about this person and the massive impact they had on the planet and cultural history. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Discovering new technologies, new philosophies, or even committing outright horrible acts that we can never forget. Becoming a legend, and leaving a mark that will remain forever, whether good or bad. I'm going to introduce you to our legend of the day, but first, before I do so, if you could sneak like a ninja and subscribe, like, and share this video. It's free for you to do so and it doesn't cost anything, but it helps this channel get more widely spread to inform others of this really cool information. All right. Let's look at an origin story, shall we? To get to know this legend, I'm going to transport you 4,600 years into the past, to the sun-baked banks of the Nile River, where the air shimmers with the heat of endless sand, the city of Memphis. This is ancient Egypt in the 3rd dynasty. Think back hard to your grade 7 social studies class. I want to add a note here. My pronunciation of ancient Egyptian names may be a little off, so for my Arabic-speaking friends and viewers that are watching this, please be understanding. Now, back to the story. In Egypt, it was a time when pharaohs were seen as living gods, and the actual gods were real and numerous. This was back before the pyramid points started to pierce the skies. It was here, in the ancient bustling city of Memphis, Egypt, with the clamoring sounds of artisans, priests, and merchants. It was this location where the child named Imhotep was born around 2650 BC. His name was chosen by his parents, meaning "he who comes in peace" would one day echo through eternity. But his beginnings were simple. Nothing as fancy as palaces or royalty for him. Imhotep's story was that of a commoner's son, entering the world in a small mud brick home in a suburb of Memphis. Homes back then were small and dirty and stood tiny beside the great temples that loomed over them like eternal guardians. His father, Canofer, was a decently respected builder. He helped in the construction of many homes and temples made of mud and reeds that they sourced from the nearby Nile River. It is thought that he exposed Imhotep to the theories of construction at a young age, so he would build his lower middle class crafting skills early and replace his father one day. Imhotep's mother, Karaduank, it was said in stories, was a devoted priestess in a few local cults of smaller Egyptian gods. In one obscure papyrus fragment that was found, she was described as a healer who tended to the sick with herbal remedies. Growing up in this environment, with the smell of fresh mud bricks and the chants of priests invoking the gods, Imhotep immersed himself in the arts of building and healing. During Imhotep's childhood in Memphis, he was surrounded with innovations, scribes etching on papyrus, astronomers gazing at the stars from the rooftop temples, and engineers taming the wild Nile River with canals and dikes. He was probably one of the world's first documented geniuses, and he absorbed everything he saw. But life wasn't all rainbows and unicorns there either. Floods devastated crops when the Nile overflowed. Disease swept through the land with no cures and killed thousands. Not to mention, the pharaoh's demands on labor weighed heavily on families. Interesting fact, slaves were not used to make these great Egyptian buildings. They were paid craftsmen and laborers. They did all that work and they were paid. It wasn't the nightmare visual where workers were whipped and they were worked so hard that they literally died on their feet. The Egyptians didn't roll that way.
By age 7, Imhotep was already learning construction, aligning buildings in cardinal directions, and plotting building lots using a knotted rope with his father. Buildings also had to keep harmony and alignment with the cosmos to ensure stability in their culture. So astronomy was a big part of building skills, although at this time it was rough estimates of astronomy and more creating the feeling of harmony. Imhotep caught on quick, and his father recognized his keen mind at a young age. Education was something set apart for the elite in those days, but unlike many other kids destined for farming or manual labor, at the age of 10, Imhotep was able to show his intellectual talents to a temple school and was enrolled there. Probably at the behest of his mother. Even though she was a commoner as well, she may have had, some connections being a temple healer and all. There, at the school, under the stern eyes of the scholars, he memorized sacred texts, learned to read and write hieroglyphics, and studied mathematics, adding and subtracting and calculating volumes for grain storage silos. They were doing all this back then. A lesser-known mention of Imhotep from the Turin documents was that he impressed the scholars so much at the school they called him the skill-fingered one because of his skill doing precise drawings and calculations. Now, the temple school was actually quite brutal work, rising before dawn for rituals, honoring Ptah, the god of craftsmen and creation, then working all day on studies and scribing until sundown. And probably getting a liberal share of the cane for not paying attention, I'm sure. As a teenager, he apprenticed with master builders far exceeding his father's basic skills. No, not those master builders. Anyways, they helped hone his understanding of engineering and astronomy, which, as I mentioned, went hand in hand those days. Egypt was going through a time of construction transformation, from tombs which were built the type his father built, with the flat mud brick roofs, to thoughts of more grand buildings. Imhotep always wondered why the tombs couldn't reach high for the heavens. A little known fact, during the 2630s, there was a great famine, and Imhotep was credited for an ingenious irrigation improvement. It was using levers and counterweights, saving the crops in his local district. This innovation of his caught the eye of local officials and actually propelled his fledgling career to the pharaoh's court as an advisor. Well, a very low-level advisor, of course, but still there. By his early 20s, he had risen to become a scribe in the royal administration. That was a role that demanded not just literacy, but wisdom in advising on matters of state and medicine and ritual. Imhotep's pivotal moment came when he entered the service of Pharaoh Djoser, the second king of the third dynasty around 2630. Djoser was ambitious and devout and sought to eternalize his reign through grand monuments. But the traditional mud structures would fall short of what he envisioned. He wanted what was due of a god king. Imhotep, now in his mid-20s, was appointed chief architect and high priest of Ra at Heliopolis, and also chief physician. It was a polymath's dream. One of the events that allowed him to reach this lofty station was during a 7-year famine called Stella. Imhotep interpreted a dream of Djoser and advised him to give offerings to the god Khnum to end the famine and restore the Nile. The famine ended, and this showed Imhotep's ability to blend astrology, priesthood, and problem solving all into one act. I mean, his dream interpretation probably didn't end the famine. It was probably just good timing, but you tell the Egyptians that. Imhotep's crowning achievement was the step pyramid of Djoser. Before him, no one had dared to build anything on such a grand scale. He innovated by stacking 6 of those mud hut temple structures one on top of the other, while getting smaller and smaller, finally reaching 200 feet high. This was the world's first large-scale stone monument. Something to note, a pyramid and a ziggurat, built by other cultures like the Aztecs, are not the same thing. Pyramids are more sloped on the outsides and are generally funeral tombs. Ziggurats are step structures, normally solid all the way through with flat tops, generally used for worship and having rituals up there. Also little known was Imhotep pioneered the use of columns in architecture, carving them to mimic bundled papyrus reeds supporting vast halls in the complexes that he built. He organized thousands of workers and innovated quarrying techniques and ramps for transporting limestone blocks from the Tura quarries across the Nile. His big project for Djoser was an enclosure spanning 1,700 by 900 feet, including mock temples, courtyards, and subterranean chambers where Djoser could commune with the deities in the afterlife. He called the area the refreshment of the gods. This construction project wasn't just a building, it was empire forging for the Egyptians. And it literally kick-started the Pyramid Age and symbolized unified power for the people. Now, I know I'm going to get some people saying, what about the aliens or giants? How do you know the Egyptians actually built the pyramids? Or how did the Egyptians lift such massive stones like that with only basic engineering skills? Well, to that I say, I don't know. Personally, I love watching shows like Ancient Aliens on TV. Who knows? Maybe Imhotep had some connection with a greater power. Maybe the Egyptians were assisted. But all I have to go with here is what's been recorded in ancient texts and tablets. So I'll stick with that for now, as it's a little more on the factual side. But try and picture it. Our legend not only designed and built the first pyramids, he also innovated the process to build them. That's huge. Anyways, continuing with Imhotep's life, his genius actually extended far past his building accomplishments, which were already huge. As a physician, he shifted medicine from pure magic of the gods at the time, and actually started using empirical evidence for treating things like fractures and construction accidents. He used things like splints and bandages, which no one else was doing. As a royal advisor, he authored literature and proverbs on ethics and governance, earning him the title of Royal Sage. As an astronomer, dubbed Wer-Ma, which means Great Stargazer, he aligned the pyramids with the stars, influencing calendars and rituals. Okay, I thought the flying saucers would be funny to include right there. Another interesting factoid, Imhotep may have designed early medical instruments like probes for surgery when he tried to combine engineering with medical techniques. This dude really did it all. Engineering marvels, medical innovation, genius. He was the highest ranking position in all of Egypt, apart from the god king Pharaoh himself. Anything else he did? Oh yeah, designing the pyramids to align with the stars. Who thinks of that stuff? Crazy smart. Okay, he might have gotten it from an alien. Who knows? But that's not the point. This guy's incredible. By his death in 2600 BC, Imhotep had transformed from a curious boy following his dad sketching in the sand with a stick to be the architect of Egypt's golden era. His tomb's location today actually remains a mystery. No one's found it. Some believe it's hidden beneath the desert sands, maybe even something rivaling Pharaoh Djoser's own tomb. But his legacy soared in Egypt culture after his death, and within the next 100 years, he was actually revered as a demigod by the Egyptian people. Fast forward to 525 BC, and he was fully deified as the god of healing, wisdom, and architecture. This equated to the Greeks' own god, Euclipius. Temples rose in Imhotep's honor in Memphis, and the sick actually went there to seek cures through dream incubation. A note to clarify, which is a common misconception, the rod of Euclipius, the medical symbol, that staff with the wings and the snake twisting around it up to the top, that was from the Greek god associated with Imhotep, but not from Egyptian mythology itself. A sentiment I really like is that Imhotep's empire he built for the Egyptians and for his pharaoh, it wasn't one of armies, but of endless ideas. Pyramids that defied time itself, medical theories that saved countless lives, and a blueprint for developing innovation. He proved that a child, born commoner, could touch the divine. In one ancient text, he actually said, "Knowledge is the ladder to eternity." In the present, today, when you gaze out at a pyramid or ponder ancient healing, take time to remember the peaceful one, the one who came from nothing and built everything. Maybe genius blooms not from birthright, but from the course to question and create. So, tell me in the comments, had you heard of Imhotep, the Egyptian child genius, later turned god? Or had you only heard of him from his role in the movie The Mummy? Did you know he was the one that designed the pyramids and the engineering like ramps and levers to build them? Or even combining medical and engineering to make splints? Comment below. I'll read them all. You see, you never know where the next great idea will come from. Maybe it'll be you, the listener, inspired by the rags to riches story of Imhotep, the commoner god. Thank you for watching my video today. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you've learned something new about one of the legends that changed our world. If you did enjoy this, please like and subscribe, as I will be releasing more legends to come. I'd also like to hear any suggestions from you, maybe someone that you've heard of, a legend, and put it in the next future video. Someone who did extraordinary things, but they sit in relative obscurity for the most part. Remember, out there, somewhere hidden in forgotten textbooks or manuscripts, unwatched movie clips, or even in the memories of our seniors, are legends. And they changed your life forever, whether you knew it or not.